Okay, today's class, lesson 11 and 12, will be a transition. We will move on to, we will work towards energy control and improve our meditation. We have laid the foundation with Yama Niyama, and we will discuss Asana in detail. And next week, important, we start studying the chakras, and we will also learn the Kriya exercises that prepare you for pranayama. So, yeah, we're making progress. Okay, Asana. A lot of asana you already know. The meaning of the word asana is important. If you understand the meaning of the word asana, you know that most yoga classes are not yoga because they're not standing still. That may seem a technicality, but it just makes the difference. Because as long as you move, there is no harmony. As long as you move, you keep generating Shakti energy, leading to a condition that we call Rajas, a Rajas condition. And it is asana that is designed to put an end to those fluctuations that normal daily life situations present us all the time. That in fact are the reason why we need something like yoga to come to a standstill. So asana means standing still. And if it is correct, you have felt the difference between standing still while actively engaged, as we do in asana, compared with exercise where you move. And I emphasize again and again, movement is good. Exercise if you feel like. Apart from yoga, I do exercise too. I just feel the need for that. If you feel the need for that, please do. But when you do yoga, just try to keep it simple. Stick to what it is designed for. And it will reward you with more than you even dare dream of. If yoga is done correctly, in a systematic way, it leads to unbelievable benefits and unbelievable transformation of consciousness. In a short time already you start seeing those effects. Now asana is meditative when done correctly. And we talked about this mysterious phrase that many yoga teachers utter while they put you in a strained pose or go through the motions with some form of power yoga, flow yoga. And then they say these mysterious words, connect your body with your mind and your soul. And it sounds very mysterious. It is something that yoga truly can bring about, but sadly not in the way that they are telling you to practice yoga, by movement and more strain than is required to come to sattva. If you start to think of connecting the body with the mind and the soul, you might get overwhelmed. Because since you were born, you've never been made familiar with the concept that there are three different kind of entities, we call them bodies, that then appear to be disconnected. So I've tried to explain that in various ways. Ancient people were physically very active simply to survive, and because they didn't have the technology that we have nowadays that does all the hard work for us. So the mental body and the spiritual body did not have much energy left to be fueled by. That was a pure luxury. The situation that we have now is totally the opposite. We have all the technology to make everything easy and convenient, but we have an education system that makes us top heavy, mentally, very highly evolved. But the physical body at the same time is deteriorating if we don't pay attention, especially those people that do not go to the gym or have the discipline to make regular walks or bicycle rides and the general activity of the physical body to keep it in a good shape. Spirituality is another matter. Spirituality happens very naturally when the physical body and the mental body are relatively harmonious with one another. And the thing is, the same as with the harmony that we talk about, not occurring as long as you move, the physical body and the mental body do not come into harmony with one another as long as we continue moving. But connecting the body with the mind is much easier than we think. It sounds mysterious, it sounds interesting, but then you think, it's just an interesting story from an ancient practice. It's not. It's about mindfulness, not multitasking. Mindfulness, doing one thing at a time and fully focusing on that one thing. That means that you engage physically while engaging mentally. Focus. And simply that engagement of both those two bodies leads to a relative harmony that causes an effect in your energy household that leads to energy rising up. And that energy that is rising up is responsible for the awakening of the spiritual body. If you practice asana correctly, it contains all these elements. It's physical, it's mental, and automatically, because of that balance, it becomes spiritual. Asana, when done correctly, is meditation. That is why it is important that you base your asana practice on the yamas and the niyamas that we have learned. You must follow your feeling. You do an asana standing still, but not relaxing in a pose. Many teachers make the mistake that while you are in the pose, they say, relax in the pose. Not correct. Because relaxation leads to tamas. We don't want rajas, we don't want tamas, we want to be in the middle. So we stand still to avoid tamas, but we actively engage to avoid. Did I say that correctly? We stand still to avoid rajas, but we actively engage to avoid tamas. And you end up somewhere close to the middle, to harmony or sattva. So you can refine your asana practice by bringing into this process a little bit more mindfulness than we have already done. And technically, this is how it works. Before you start your practice, you close your eyes for a moment so that all the energy settles down and you become relatively calm and contemplative. You get up. If it's starting with standing poses, you stand in Tadasana. Now, before you do the next exercise, before you physically engage, you repeat the name of the exercise. So what we have in our current schedule, we start with Tadasana, followed by Friksha. And this is how you do this from now on. You start in Tadasana, but not just standing in Tadasana, you start contemplating Friksasana. And because you've already done Friksasana at least 4 times in the past 4 or 5 weeks, 5 times, it's already a little bit in your memory. Not just the picture of it, but the feeling of it. So you stand in Tadasana, you say in silence, you say Friksasana, and you visualize the pose. And you remember the feeling that you have when in the pose. And by approaching it in this way, all the dots connect within your body, preparing you for actually doing Friksasana. And the moment that you engage, you are 100% engaged, physically and mentally, in Friksasana. So it's not just a physical action anymore, it is something that you do with your whole being. And that is where the magic happens. And on the surface it may look a little bit superficial, but if you practice your asana consistently in this way, you'll notice that all other things that you do in your daily life, at work, at home, just daily chores or tasks or duties, you start doing in the same way. You know what the benefit of that is? The results of what you do, the quality of what you do, becomes so much better than it was before. Because whatever it is that you do, you're fully focused, you're fully engaged. And you are not focusing on another thing before that thing is finished. And it just naturally integrates into your daily life. You don't even have to do effort other than practicing your asana correctly, following these steps. The Hatha Yoga Pradipika in chapter 1 gives, basically lays down the whole blueprint for the circumstances that you need to create to have the best results from your yoga practice in general, asana practice in particular. And one requirement is that you have a place that is relatively comfortable, not too hot, not too cold, not too small, not too wide. A place where you can practice your yoga. That is also a place that should be free from disturbances. So if you have a family or a roommate, you try to practice yoga in the presence of other people, you will quickly notice that it is very disruptive, actually, other people's activity. So you need to find time that you can be there alone. So you try to plan your practice when other members of the household are doing their thing, preferably outdoors or in another room. Also, and I think this is obvious now, turn off the music. Don't play music, don't leave the TV on watching the news while you're doing your asana. Yoga, it's a distraction. And when I started practicing yoga in the beginning, and I hadn't even studied all this, I very quickly got rid of my TV set. Because not only did it cause me to skip my practice, I practiced every evening at the end of the day, it just sucked out my energy. I was sitting in front of the TV and switching channels. Remote controls didn't exist at that time yet, and you had only 3 channels. Just switching between the channels, and all had nothing interesting, and yet I continued to watch. So I got rid of that TV. And instead I started reading books, writing letters. But most importantly, it prepared me for practicing yoga. The TV distracted from it. I have a TV again. I have a smart TV, and I'm very happy with it. But I'm very selective. And when you practice yoga, just stick to yoga. There are guidelines about food. We will read that chapter, so we don't have to go very deep into it, but there are guidelines about food, of course. Common sense things like after a big meal, practicing asana is not a good thing to do. There are 2 major reasons for that. One is that, especially with a big meal, digesting a big meal is a major task for the body, so lots of energy goes there that you cannot use for other activities at that moment. If you do so, you put an unreasonable burden on your whole system, and in light of the practice of yoga, that just doesn't make sense. So if you need to eat, like we start this class at 1:30 and we finish around 6:30, so it's very possible that you want to have at least something to eat before, because it's around lunchtime that we start, and we are here for a couple of hours. So you might at least want to eat something. Eat something light, like a kimbap, like a rice roll, or something light. Nothing fried, nothing heavy, fatty, just light and small. And nutritious, of course. Yoga is practical. Practical means, why would you eat foods that have no nutritions? Like white flour, like white rice, like all kinds of sugars. That is, of course, a nutrition, but puts a huge burden on your energy system. I think in a very natural way, that is how it happened with me also, you feel more and more attracted to nutritious foods, pure foods. That doesn't mean that you can't enjoy eating a pizza or a hamburger or white bread once in a while to make toast or something. But just once in a while, just as a special treat. But the foundation is food that is full of fiber and nutrition and proteins. Why is this important? Because yoga is all about energy. And if you don't have the energy, you can do all that energy work, it might actually exhaust you. But the opposite is also true. If you fuel yourself with relatively good quality nutritious foods, you just feel incredibly strong and light-footed and in a good mood also, very important for mood also. So food is important, the location where you practice is important, the circumstances, the condition in which you practice, whether there are people around with their activities disturbing you or not, that is important. And well, you know, there are teachers who say after yoga practice you shouldn't take a shower immediately. if you ask why, I've heard some very weird answers. One of which was, if you take a shower immediately after your yoga practice, the spirit will leave your body. How does that work? Nobody knows. But I understand something that they don't understand, because it is symbolical language for your energy condition will be affected. Because you know how you feel after yoga practice. You feel very mellow, contemplative, calm. If immediately you eat a big meal or you jump into the shower, take a shower, bang, you crash. That wonderful condition that you built up practicing your yoga for an hour or more, it just crashes. We have to learn, also at the end of the day when you go out, take an elevator, go into the street, maybe a bus or a subway or a taxi or you drive, try to be very conscious of the moment where you lose that wonderful condition. And then make it a sport, make it a game. Next time, to extend that. Try to keep that peace of mind, that wonderful condition, as long as possible, even in the subway station, even while you're driving in busy traffic or meeting lots of people crossing and passing by and what have you. It's all about control, based on consciousness, being aware how it affects you. But that is only part of what the Hatha Yoga Pradipika says, because the Hatha Yoga Pradipika not only talks about water, it talks about rocks, water and fire. Stay away at least a bow's length, an arrow shot length away from rocks, water and fire. I was told that you must take that literally. Staying away from rocks means the room in which you practice must not be too narrow. If the ceiling is low and the walls too close, that oppresses your energy ball, your aura. Water, the story of shower. Don't practice it's good to practice in nature, but don't practice too close to the shoreline, because water affects your water center. And fire, don't indulge in the comfort of fire. Taking a nice warm bath, or in Korea, the floor heating is very tempting to just enjoy snuggling up. It's true. Fire can destroy your energy household. And I've met people with whom that happened. We will talk about that when we study that in chapter 1. But look at it. Rocks, water, fire. What are we talking about here? Muladhara chakra, Svadhisthana chakra, and Manipura chakra. We haven't studied them yet. But when we read the Hatha Yoga Pradipika dealing with this issue, you know all about the chakras, and you realize that staying away from earth, water and fire is a condition that is created, for example, in a temple or a monastery or a retreat. What does it mean? First of all, those are the 3 lowest chakras that all deal with your instincts, with survival, with your desires, with your lower emotions and desires. Fear, anxiety, ego, ambition. That's all included in those 3 lower chakras. Stay away from all these if you want to prosper practicing yoga. That is why temples, monasteries have such strict rules. You're not allowed. Everybody, you should take off all your personal clothes and put on clothes that everybody is wearing, so that you don't emphasize your ego. And eat very austere food stay away. But also, it's a safe place, so you don't have to revert back to your survival instinct or have fear induced by threatening situations or so. So that is what it really means. Stay away from rock, water, and fire means take care of the basic needs that are contained within those lower chakras so that you're not disturbed or distracted by that while you are pursuing your yoga. Now, page 2, the third paragraph. Excessively rigid discipline also makes yoga fail. Discipline. Where are we without discipline? Nothing gets done without discipline. So discipline is important. To some people it might seem like an ugly word because freedom, I have a right to be free, but that's not how it works. Discipline is important if you want to achieve your goals in life, if you want to fulfill your dreams and your wishes in life, if you want to take control of your destiny in life. The discipline is important, but the emphasis here is on rigid discipline. Try to picture this. You discover yoga and you think, wow, this feels so good. I'm going to do it every day. And instead of waking up at 7 o'clock, I wake up at 5 o'clock. I will take a cold shower and then I will do my yoga. And you do it like that every day. You know what happens? After 3 weeks, only the thought of the word yoga will make you shudder. You will hate yoga. That is what rigid discipline does. What could be so good for you becomes something that you start resisting, start hating even. How do you approach this? Be flexible. You need discipline, otherwise you're not going to practice at all. So you make a plan. I'm going to practice. I try to practice every day. So you practice. Try to practice every day and you will naturally find the need to at least one day not practice. I used to practice 6 days a week and Sunday not. But Monday I was very happy that I could practice again. And inevitably there would come a Tuesday or a Thursday that you decide to skip your practice tonight. Just because you're lazy or you ate a little bit too much, or maybe it's Christmas, or now this is what happens, and this is how discipline can be healthy discipline as opposed to rigid discipline. You decided to practice yoga because it feels good. That is important. If something doesn't feel good, you should stay away from it, obviously, naturally. So it feels good. You decided to practice, and you know you need to practice regularly to make it work, or to make it work better. If the day comes that you skip while actually you were supposed to practice, give yourself a little bit of slack. Allow yourself then that night or that morning not to practice. Even if that means just because you were lazy, you're only human. That is the starting point. We are only human. We want to achieve something, so we decided to do that, but today I don't feel like it. Give in to it. But as a real yogi, you will do that consciously too. And I have experienced this many times. I enjoy that moment that I decided not to practice and just do something else instead. But soon comes the regret. Why? Because it feels different. Something is lacking. Something that you have that is there when you have the discipline to practice is just not there. The next morning when you wake up, if you practice in the evening, the next morning when you wake up, you just feel different. You miss something. And that will naturally motivate you to bring out your blanket or your mat the next evening. Just the fact that you want that feeling back again will motivate you, will give you the discipline, the healthy discipline, to not skip your next practice. Rigid discipline, you can see this in education also. This applies to everything. Many children are being forced through the education system. They're not only going to school, but after school they go to another school, and in the worst case scenario, they go to another school after that, and they come back home like 11 o'clock or so, and that on a fairly regular basis. It is no surprise that children start to hate education, that suicide rates are so high among youth. That is what rigid discipline does. Education for children, teenagers, is important, but it should be fun. Why? Because when they enjoy what they do, their energy is circulating and they function like sponges. They soak up all the information in the class that the teacher presents them. But a child that hates what they are doing doesn't absorb anymore because the energy is blocked. It doesn't work. So whether it's yoga or anything else, the yamas and the niyamas apply here. Non-violence, non-lying, non-stealing. Chastity is not so much involved here, but non-desire. Desire is necessary to get where we want to be, but control it to a certain extent. So discipline is important, but rigid, excessive discipline, it will lead to failure. You will throw away your yoga mat, maybe even burn it, and you'll never want to even hear the word yoga again. What makes yoga work? Steadfastness, effort and dedication, courage, true knowledge, belief, faith and confidence, detachment from people's company. In the Hatha Yoga Pradipika you will see that Svatmarama does not mention that only once, but multiple times. And he will use different kinds of phrases for that, like promiscuous people, disturbing people, what have you. Yoga is something that when you practice, you need to do on your own. You come to class to learn, at home you do it on your own. You can practice with somebody, if you are with somebody who's on the same wavelength, with your partner or a friend, you are doing the same thing, engaging in the same thing. That is the same as doing it alone. Not entirely, completely, but that is of course, that is okay. But it's a different story if you practice yoga and somebody else is playing hard rock music or watching a TV program that makes a lot of noise or moving up and down and in and out the room where you are practicing. That really doesn't work. Steam will start coming out of your ears because it will just generate anger and irritation, frustration, what have you. And that is the opposite of what you try to achieve with your practice. Steadfastness is, of course, determination. You decided to do, so just do it. Steadfastness you can put under the banner of purity, consistency. Effort and dedication, obvious. Nothing is achieved without it. Not only in yoga, but everywhere. Courage. Why would you need courage? Yoga is kind of a little bit like opening a can of worms, as they say. Nah, that's not a nice way to put it. Yoga leads to transformation, opening of consciousness, and it leads to realization of yourself. That includes good things and not so good things, and that requires courage. And seeing the world for what it really is, as opposed to what you previously thought it was, requires courage. But courage is not something that you can say, today I'm going to be very courageous. Because courage is a quality of the crown chakra. Fear is a quality of the chakra on the total opposite side of the chakra system, in the lowest chakra. And this is the reason why I told you that story last week about the panic attack that I had on Friday night, the Friday before I was going to pick up Bobby from the shelter. Because what happened is, I'm generally functioning in the crown chakra, I connect the dots, I see the need of Pada and Bobby having to be together, so it becomes a duty, a mission, to reunite them again. And then Friday night, for some reason, the energy dropped all the way down to the lowest chakra, and I started to rationalize. This dog, already having one difficult dog, bringing another one into the house that is 10 times worse. And not knowing anything about my near and far future. I didn't have an income at that time. I wasn't having yoga classes, and I wasn't teaching, and courage is something that the spiritual person has naturally. It's not something that you can sit down and say, today I'm going to be very courageous. It's a natural quality of the spiritual person. But I told you this story about the panic attack because you're only human and energy is fickle. It always fluctuates, and it's faster than light that it moves. And you will always continue to function on lower levels of consciousness. But you have a new quality compared to how you functioned before, or how the majority of people function. You have a new quality that allows you to rise above your fear and look at it and rationalize it. And you start to see the whole picture, which is what I did, and which is what just made it totally impossible for me to cancel the adoption of Bobby. That was just out of the question, regardless. And to be sure, the next 3 months was mayhem. Unprecedented mayhem. But very grateful for being able to save this poor thing, needy thing that nobody knew how to handle and was just going to die anyway out of sheer misery. It's so gratifying, so rewarding. And now, almost 2.5 years later, still I see improvements in both of them. And I'm just so happy that I did what I had to do. That is courage. The spiritual person will walk this path, the road not taken because of this quality, because of courage. And people will tell you often, what the hell are you doing? Are you crazy? Why don't you just act normal like other people do? Then you say, yeah, but I really want to do this. And it will be fine. Because you believe in what you feel in your heart. You believe in the direction that your heart is taking you in. But it is easier said than done. It does come with challenges and obstacles, and that is where the courage is required. And yoga naturally gives you that. True knowledge, that is a good one too. What is true knowledge? You know what is not true knowledge? If I take a book and I just read from this book and I say, that's it, that was the class for today, go home and memorize what we learned today. It doesn't mean that it's not true, but true knowledge is, what is true knowledge is the insights that I share, regardless of what is written in the book or in the text, that is based on having absorbed the text, having contemplated, meditated on the text, developed insights based on the text, and then sharing that with you. That is true knowledge. But just repeating something that another person in the past wrote down in a book, that leads to the spreading of false knowledge. There are many books that say Shiva energy is masculine because Shiva is a male god, and Shakti energy is feminine because Shakti is a female goddess. And that author clearly hasn't studied a text where it is clearly explained. But they heard it somewhere else and they just parrot what they heard and claim that to be their wisdom, their knowledge. It's not, because they just repeat the same mistake again, again, and again, like the previous authors have done. Then I pulled out my Hatha Yoga Pradipika because we are going to talk about energy in the second session, and I will show you the sutras that prove that what I say about Shiva and Shakti is correct. That Shakti, although female, represents the masculine energy, the kundalini that rises from the bottom upwards. The book leaves no doubt about that. Which also shows that all those yoga teachers who make that mistake have not read the book. Or they have read it superficially and not contemplated it and not connected the dots. So we will come back to that after the first session. Belief, faith, and confidence. That brings us to surrender, last week's final niyama. belief, faith, and confidence is also a quality of a spiritual person, because those are qualities of the crown chakra. When you hear me talking about the universe, I say deliberately, I'm an atheist, but there is an intelligence there that takes care of an order in the universe and down here on earth. And if I tell you anecdotes about my life, I very often involve the universe in that story, because I know that there were higher powers at work that helped in their way, that led to the achievement of difficult next steps, that led to successes. So that's not something that I can teach you. It's something that you will develop yourself as a result of your yoga practice. You will develop more and more a connection, starting with the connection within yourself, soul connection, and you will start to see the logic and the order of the universe at work. In the universe, but more importantly, in society, and even more importantly, inside you as an individual. You will see that the less you are in line with the plan of the universe, the more you suffer. And the more you surrender and are in line with the plan of the universe, the more things prosper and develop in a constructive way. That's very difficult to teach, and that is also not something that anybody can tell you, this is how you must do it. It just doesn't work that way. Practice yoga and it will all fall into place, naturally. All I can do is explain a little bit what it means, how it works, and then you have faith, belief that someday you will be more and more in line with that too. I know from experience, from all the people that I know that have done yoga, that sooner or later all of us function more and more based on those qualities in the crown chakra. Good? Questions about asana? Most of all, the best advice I can give you is just enjoy it. As long as you enjoy it, your energy is circulating freely, even accelerating. Now there will come days that you don't enjoy it so much because you're tired, you're busy in your mind mentally. Then you have to take control of your thought processes. In the same way that you take control when you have to perform your duties, responsibilities, and chores. You say, it is important that I do this. And the reward is, you have the discipline to do your yoga that day that you actually felt too tired to actually do it, or too distracted to actually do it. The reward is immediate. You have the discipline to do it anyway, and you will feel so good after you're done. If you were tired, you feel refreshed. Not only that, there is a psychological element here. The feeling, the sense that you controlled, that you did not give in to the tendency to just skip for today just because of the circumstances. It is so empowering that you did it anyway. And you will just physically and mentally feel so refreshed and so great. And that experience will embolden you, will empower you next time when you feel like skipping. You will say, yes, I actually really would like to skip. But I remember last time I did it anyway and it felt so great. I think I'm going to do it after all. Play. I'm always in conversation with myself. And when I'm in trouble, I talk to myself in the same way as that I talk to you when I teach yoga. Boring, huh? I'm a boring yogi. Okay, let's have a short break.